Welcome to the Real Estate Syndication Show. Whether you are a seasoned investor or building a new real estate business, this is the show for you. Whitney Sewell talks to top experts in the business. Our goal is to help you master real estate syndication. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today our guest is Nick Prefontaine. Thanks for being on the show, Nick.
Thanks for having me, Whitney. I'm excited to be here with you and your listeners.
Nick is an expert in buying and selling real estate on terms. He's an Amazon best-selling author of The New Rules of Real Estate Investing. He's a partner and coach at Smart Real Estate Coach. Nick, thanks again. I'm looking forward to, I know you have a remarkable story of just something that's significant that happened to you when you were much younger, and just how that got you into real estate. And I'm looking forward to hearing that story. I know the listeners are going to learn a lot and be encouraged as well. And so why don't we just jump right in and you just get us started way back.
Sure. Going way back. I always like sharing the story of my snowboarding accident because I feel it can help so many people out there that are going through something similar, whether it's a health challenge or struggling in their day-to-day business. So going back to when I was in 8th grade, when I was 14, I was with my school, with my ski club, and every Wednesday we would have ski club. So usually there was a small hill that I used to go to every day. And when I say every day, definitely every day. At one point, I had gone there from when they opened all the way through Christmas, even including Christmas. But whenever I went there, I wouldn't wear a helmet because it was small, it was manageable, I knew the terrain. However, when I went to ski club, it was always at a bigger mountain. So I wasn't quite as used to it, so I would always bring my helmet. On this particular day, I had forgot my helmet. I really didn't think it was a big deal. In fact, getting ready, because my friends and I would bring our stuff on the bus to get ready. So in getting ready, I realized that I had forgot one thing, my helmet. That I do usually, I'm not going to say to you that I'm a saint or anything, but I usually made an effort to bring it whenever I went to that particular mountain, because it was a little bigger. Just thought I would be safe. I'd be careful. Nothing ever happened. I'd be fine. So we got to the mountain, and because we were ready, we strapped in right away and headed straight for the top. On the way to the top, we noticed that it was very icy, Whitney, because it had been raining. People were wiping out everywhere. However, needless to say, we got to the top, and it wasn't, my friends and I, it wasn't our first time on a snowboard. And they were all talking about how whoever hit that jump in the terrain park would be crazy. You know, it's a huge jump, and the conditions and everything. And of course, like anything, and I still take anything like that. Not necessarily a slight, but I use anything to my advantage like that. I took it as a challenge, of course. So I headed straight for the biggest jump with all my speed, and going out to the jump, I caught the edge of my snowboard, and that kind of threw me off balance. Now I was going way too fast, and I was way too close to the top to stop, so I was forced to go off the jump. So in the air, I was off balance, and I landed right on my head. So I was later told that I landed on my head and I wasn't wearing a helmet. I had to be rushed to the hospital, to the ICU. When I got to the ICU, the doctors told my parents that I probably wouldn't walk, talk, or eat on my own ever again. After I was stabilized there, because it did take a little bit of time, I was in a coma for 3 weeks. So it did take a little bit of time, even after I came out of the coma, to be at a point where I was stable enough. But just going, even when I was in the coma, I came out of the coma, and I've even seen videos, Whitney, of myself with my eyes open and looking around and everything. I don't remember any of that because I was in a partially induced coma, because they had to induce me because the swelling in my brain was such that they worried if I woke up and I panicked, what happened, what's going on, that I would increase the swelling in my brain and I would die. So there were definitely a few lucky breaks for me at that point that I definitely point back to. But once I was stabilized, about a month after my accident, I was stabilized at the ICU intensive care unit at UMass Memorial Hospital in Worcester. I was transported to Franciscan Children's Hospital in Boston. That's where I started the journey to regain learning, getting all my muscle back, because I lost a lot of weight when I was in the coma. I went from 160 pounds all the way down to 137. And if you can imagine that, for a 14-year-old to lose that much weight, it was a I mean, I had lost everything. I see videos of myself at the hospital, and it's like I was a ghost, because obviously I wasn't getting any sun. So I was definitely like a ghost. It was like all the color and all the weight and everything had just come off of me. But when I was transported to Franciscan, that's where I had to learn how to walk, talk, and eat again. And I remember very early on in my recovery having to learn how to walk, learn how to talk, and they just would constantly be feeding me so I would gain my weight back. That was a big point, especially early on in my recovery. But I remember learning how to walk again, and just taking it one step at a time. And even to this day, Whitney, I say all the time with associates of ours, people that we're working with in the trenches to do deals, I say to them, no, don't worry, because like, well, what if this happens and then that happens and then I have to do this and I have to do that? I'm like, whoa. Don't worry about that. Just worry about one thing at a time that you can control. Very early on in my recovery, I still wasn't even walking yet. I was still in a wheelchair. And I remember sitting there in between therapies, because what it would be was every day I would get up and I would need help getting showered and getting ready and everything like that. But then once I was able to get ready and have breakfast, I would have physical, occupational, and speech therapy. Then I would go back to the room to have lunch. And then in the afternoon, I would have another physical, occupational, and speech therapy. So double sessions. I remember on this one particular day, very early on in my recovery, I was still in a wheelchair, not a fully supported wheelchair, which I did start out with, but just a regular wheelchair with no extra support. And I was sitting in my room after having lunch in between my therapies, and I just kind of looked down at my situation. I don't know what it was that made me like take a step back, but I was kind of like having trouble figuring it all out. And I looked at my mom, and I'm like, who was with me every day during the day in my recovery, and I said, am I ever going to be able to walk again? And she did not hesitate. She goes, yeah, of course you are. That's like, why do you think we're here at Franciscan? That's what you're doing. You're learning how to do everything again, and then you're going to be back to school with your friends, and your life's going to be the same as it was before. So that sense of confidence and that having that no hesitation was a big part of what was able to, one of the things why I was able to recover so well. I definitely.
What about when you first came to, or you first came to, you're figuring out what has happened. I just wonder, like, how do you cope with that, or how do you I know there's listeners who are either experiencing similar things or maybe have, and how do you cope with that initially? And then I love the just you talking about your mom just not being not hesitating at all to just encourage you to say, well, of course you're going to, and just having that confidence. I can only imagine how that just pushed you forward. But just dealing with that initially, especially only being 14, what was it that really helped you to deal with that?
It's funny. I get that question. I've got that question for years. Like, what did you do when you quote unquote woke up? When you realized what was going on, even at the ICU at UMass? I don't even, to be candid with you, I don't even remember the whole waking up portion at UMass coming out of the coma. I think that was for a reason. They were glad, the doctors and nurses were glad that I didn't remember that. That was part of their whole reasoning of sedating me and inducing me into the coma, was that as they were able to take drugs, take them away from me, so I was able to come out of the coma after the swelling had come down, they didn't want me. I think that's by design. They didn't want me to remember that.
Sure.
To remember that feeling, that those emotions and everything that was going on at that point. But the only thing I knew is one day I was in Franciscan Hospital, and just my life was get up, get ready, eat, work, just physical, occupational speech, just do whatever the therapists are telling you to do. And then, obviously you have your break for lunch and everything like that, but then do it again. And just every day was just the next step. Just, if this is what I got to do, I'm doing it. That's just kind of how I was raised. And then at the time when I was going through it, my dad was doing some motivational speaking as well. So I was surrounded by that positivity and that, I mentioned my mom not hesitating at all and just saying, of course you are. But there was also affirmations around my room. With each step I take, I'm getting stronger and stronger. Each day I'm growing closer. I'm getting closer to my goals every day. So everywhere I look, even when I couldn't walk, I couldn't get away from it. The positivity and the affirmations were all around me. It wasn't like I could get up. No, I don't believe in this stuff. I'm gonna get up and walk away. I couldn't, of course. That's a little tongue in cheek, but yeah, it was. I don't want to say next man up. That's not a thing. It was me, but it was also the support system that I had around me. So it was just, I had to do what was in front of me, and that was put in front of me, and I had that great support system around me.
I love the attitude of just, not focusing on how, just really your the issue of not being able to walk, but you're focusing, you were focusing on, okay, what's next, doing this exercise or having this done or whatever it may be, focusing on strength training, whatever, the therapists were having you do. And just, you mentioned, let's whatever it takes, let's just get it going, instead of focusing on thinking, it's just too big of an issue. And, I can relate. That mindset is so crucial and is so beneficial to any entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Just, saying, okay, where do we get started, as opposed to focusing on how big the problem is or how much work it's going to take. And I personally can relate some of that. I think back to military training and things like that, where it's just let's get it started, let's get it done, and work really hard. You mentioned you were raised, to think that way. What I'd love to know, like how your parents trained you to think that way, in 8th grade and, up to that point, and maybe some ways that just they taught you to have that type of mindset.
Oh, that was just how I grew up, Whitney. It's really amazing. It's one of the things that I say to this day to people, like even myself, whenever I'm learning something new or tackling a new task or challenge, is just start. Just start. Don't set this ridiculous number that you got to do. Like I gotta do 100. Just say like, all right, I'm gonna do 15. I'm gonna do 20, and then by starting, when you get to the end of that 15 or 20, you're like, no, I feel great. I want to keep going. So that kind of works in the aspect of when I said I would have to go to double sessions of physical, occupational, and speech therapy. Once I had the kind of the exercises and I had that rhythm started, even when I got back, I'd be doing extra things to myself to get me to my goal faster, like free weights and things like that. But I always had the goal. I always had the big goal at the beginning of running out of the hospital. I wanted to run out of the hospital. So I had that. Even you put that aside. You put that big goal aside and you focus on what's the next step I got to do. So by doing that little step, you build momentum, and then you're like, well, why can't it will get me to where I want to go? So then after I ran out of the hospital in April, my school said to me that, oh, just take the year off. Don't worry about it. Like, don't worry about finishing 8th grade. Just come back next year and you can do 8th grade all over again. Well, that's just, as I was telling you everything, that's just not what it was about. I was like, no, I want to get this done. I want to graduate 8th grade with my classmates and then go on. So I had to get tutored every weekday for, I think 2 or 3 hours. I would get tutored every weekday so that I was able to go on to 9th grade and graduate with my class. But then 2 years after my accident, I grew up in a family real estate business. So 2 years after my accident, I got the itch by reading Robert Kiyosaki's Cash Flow Quadrant, and I started asking my dad questions like, hey, how do I get started with helping you, and how do I do more, and that kind of thing. And the thing that they were experimenting at the time was 05, 06, 07 was door knocking pre-foreclosure doors, going to knock on the door of someone who had received or noticed a default letter from the bank. So I saw that and I was like, why can't they didn't have any what they termed it bird dogs at the time. They didn't have anyone actually doing that at the time. So I was like, why can't I do that? I'll do that. So right after I got my permit, my license, I started door knocking these pre-foreclosure doors. So it was only a couple years after I ran out of the hospital that I was going and knocking on these people that had received a notice of default letter from the bank saying that there was a foreclosure date set in the future and they, better get the payments caught up and everything like that to save it. I would get that list and then go and knock on their door and try to provide them a solution that we could offer. At the beginning, I just had a script. So here's a script. So I would go, rush up, knock on the door, read the script. I was not seeing a lot of, I was doing a lot of knocking on a lot of doors, but I wasn't seeing success. Then shortly after that, my cousin Mike and I flew out to California, San Diego, to shadow the number one guy in the country. His name was Colin, who was having success door knocking these pre-foreclosure doors. Once I saw his approach and how it differed from mine, as soon as we got back, I changed my approach, started seeing success. Then, after graduating high school, I got my real estate license and became a realtor. Was a successful realtor for six years full time. And then around the 6-year mark, my dad asked me if I wanted to help him with some of the marketing of the properties that he was getting, and that turned into helping him with the buyers, and that really led me to what I'm doing today, and that's creating the process for working with buyers. And then once I have that process, and there's a particular process that you want to put buyers through, in order to maximize their chances of success in crossing the finish line and getting their own loan, and also maximize their down payment. Once I was able to do that, now I'm doing that not only in our business, because we're still working in the trenches and still working with buyers and sellers every single week, but I'm also able to help all of our associates all over the country do the same thing that I was doing when it was just my dad and I. So that's kind of it in a nutshell, how it's evolved. I know that was a mouthful.
No, that's such an interesting story, and thankful that you survived altogether, and much less, be able to walk and do everything that they thought you wouldn't be able to do. And ultimately you said, 3 months, and it's it's quick time to be running out of the hospital. So I'm thankful that you were healed, and that you came out of that. And I just contribute so much that to your mindset, and I'm sure that through the real estate business that's just paid dividends forward, just the mindset alone. So Nick, what about just taking that the mindset? Is there any examples, say in real estate, how just growing a business and a brand, and how how that mindset's helped you to push forward and to be successful in real estate like you all have?
Yeah. There is something I can point to, and that's whenever a new investor that we're working with encounters a challenge or a setback, or things aren't going as fast as they want them to, the thought is always in the back of their head that this isn't working, I'm going to try something else. That's probably the worst thing to do. You have to keep going. You have to keep taking that next step. And now I say that, Whitney, I always say to our associates and to people that we work with, and to even buyers, like, don't worry about all of that. Just focus on this. Like, all you have to focus on is the next step. And I've been saying that for years. I didn't realize the irony around that because I had to learn how to walk again. So it's when people like yourself just said that you're glad I made it, and glad I'm here talking to you and everything. Me too. That's what I always say. Me too. I'm glad I made it too.
What's another way, Nick, recently that you all have improved your business that we could apply to ours?
It's a great question. That's a great question. We're constantly, Whitney, looking for ways to improve our business. We don't stay stagnant. So I think an important point to mention is, for your listeners or anyone out there who's hearing this, is that what sets us apart, I think, from other coaches, mentors, trainers in the industry is we're actually doing what we teach still. We're still out in the trenches working with buyers and sellers. And then we're also in the trenches with our associates working with buyers and sellers, and we lock arms with them and do these deals together. So the moment something changes, like a new law, or we're having trouble doing this, so we decided that we're going to go in this direction, just a little change, but that's really helped us in our business. As soon as we find, whether it's a tweak to an attorney agreement or anything like that, we're able to provide that to our associates and the other members that we work with. And the fact that we're able to change so quickly with what's going on in the market and able to provide that to our associates out there, I really think that sets us apart because there are a lot of people in this industry that are training on things that were successful 5, 10, 15 years ago. And you and I both know in any business, things change so quickly. And if you're not actually doing the thing that you're training and you're teaching others to do, you're going to get left behind.
What's a way, or maybe the top way that you all are meeting new investors right now?
Well, I think one of the top ways we have what's become really really beneficial for all of our all the people that are kind of within our community is the fact that we're doing, in addition to the mastermind call that we have, and that's for anyone that's an associate and anyone who's decided to make that commitment. That's usually every Thursday at 5:00 from 5 to 6. However, what we find has been most successful now for anyone that's even thinking about getting involved with us and the community is we're doing a live training that usually takes place from 4 to 5 on Thursday Eastern time, from 4 to 5. And those, for the most part, those are, you don't need to pay anything to be on those. Now, there are a few that we have, that a few of the trainings that do require that they have the QLS or QLS Quantum Leap system. So that's only one of the 4 or 5 weeks of the month. Most of them are free trainings from 4 to 5. And if anything of what I said interests anyone listening to this today, they could probably head to our website, which is smartrealestatecoach.com. And again, that's smartrealestatecoach.com. And they can get registered for the free On Your Terms webinar. We have them running several times a day. But if it's for them, and I'm not saying we're a good fit for everyone, because we're not. You know, it's got to be for them. But if it's for them, they'll be able to determine that by the end of that webinar, and then they'll know what the next step is at the end of that webinar. So again, the website is smartrealestatecoach.com, and the webinar that they want to get registered for is the On Your Terms webinar.
Nick, what's the one thing that's contributed to your success?
One thing that's contributed to my success. Well, I want to see my morning routine. My morning routine of either meditating or working out, either one of those, and then journaling and reading and doing that. And my whole goal for that, Whitney, is every day I want to get better. I want to get better. I want to learn something and get better. Even if it's only a small bit, I want to learn something new and get better every day. I'm not talking like I want to, change the world in a day, but every day I want to just, what is it called? The compound effect. Just learn something, stretch yourself a little bit every day, and then in a year, you're going to be a different person.
For sure. I appreciate you bringing that up. I couldn't agree more. Tell us how you like to give back.
Well, I like to give back. That's kind of I don't know if we have enough time to talk about that, but no, I'm just kidding. When after I got out of the hospital, Franciscan Children's Hospital, that was in 2003. In 2005, we started a foundation, the Prefontaine Foundation, that 100% benefited Franciscan Children's Hospital. We ran for a few years. We had a few golf tournaments that we ran and other events like that. However, it just became very cumbersome on the admin side, a lot of work administratively. So Franciscan absorbed the Prefontaine Foundation in, I believe it was 2007 or 2008, and it's now called the Prefontaine Fund at Franciscan Children's Hospital. So our aim is every time I donate because I still donate a percentage of my income. Every check I earn, a percentage gets sent to them. But I just make sure I write the Prefontaine Fund in the memo line of the check. But that fund, the Prefontaine Fund, goes towards only improving the lives and the experience of the kids at the hospital. So the really important thing of that is Franciscan can't, I love Franciscan to death, but Franciscan can't just, whenever they need money, take from the fund and go and spend it on like one thing, like this thing or that thing. They have to work with us and consult us for what we think is going to be most useful and present us with options. Usually what we are doing and what we did last year was a device, almost like a smart, like a smart device that you wear that can help you, that tracks your movements and everything like that, that can really help you improve, and helps the therapist work with the kids that are at the hospital. So the Prefontaine Fund got that for Franciscan last year. I really would have loved to have a device like that, something like that, while I was at the hospital. And that's how I usually approach anytime there's a little bit of money in the Prefontaine Fund. That's how I usually approach anything that we're doing, because ultimately, I mean, I consult with my family, but ultimately I'm the one that's making the decisions for the Prefontaine Fund.
Wow.
We do it together as a family, but for the most part, I always think of what would I have liked best. Like they've a few times said, well, we want to name a park after you. We want to name this, like do all this. And we always say, no, like that's not gonna help anyone. That's not gonna improve the lives and the experience of the kids at the hospital. So we opt to do something like we did last year.
Wow. Well, thanks for sharing that, Nick. I'm grateful for your time and just and you being willing to share and be so transparent with your story. And I know that's going to benefit many others who are listening and are experiencing something similar. Just the mindset alone to get through something like that. I'm grateful for that. Tell the listeners. I know you shared your website, but share that how they can get in touch with you all. And then I think also you have a gift as well.
Yeah, the couple things about that. So remember, Whitney, how I was talking about they can get registered for the free On Your Terms webinar on our website? Well, included with that is a free strategy call with one of us, with one of the team members. So I think that's the best way. That's the best way to get in touch with us. If anything of what I said today resonates with anyone out there, that's the best way to get in touch with us. Yeah, I would love to. What I can do for your listeners is give away a free copy of our best-selling book, The New Rules of Real Estate Investing. When I say free, I mean 100% free. So even like after you opt in, we're not going to charge you $10 for shipping. Everything's free. If they go to newrulesforfree.com, and again, that's newrulesforfree.com, they can submit all their info there, and we'll send the book out to them. Now, please be patient with us. Things have been a little delayed with this whole coronavirus craziness that's going on. So I'm not sure when they're going to be listening to this, but just be patient with us on when we'll get that out to you, but it will be coming.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by LifeBridge Capital. LifeBridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. LifeBridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.